The night I followed my wife after 24 years of marriage, I told myself I was probably imagining things. I hoped my fears were nothing more than insecurity. But what I witnessed in that dimly lit parking lot destroyed everything I believed about love, loyalty, and the woman I had trusted more than anyone else. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 52 years old, a quiet man who built his life from the ground up. For 24 years, I was married to Laura, my college sweetheart. She stood beside me when all I had was determination and a borrowed suit. Together, we raised two wonderful children, built a comfortable home, and created what I believed was an unshakable marriage. Then, little by little, everything began to change. It started with small details. She began taking late-night phone calls in another room. She suddenly cared much more about her appearance, buying new dresses and wearing expensive perfume she had never shown interest in before. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I had become too focused on work. Maybe I wasn't giving her enough attention. I convinced myself the problem had to be me. One evening, she told me she was meeting some friends. There was something different about the way she said it. Her voice felt forced, almost rehearsed. For the first time in my life, I decided to follow her. Keeping my distance, I watched as she drove across town and parked outside a quiet restaurant. My heart pounded as she stepped out of her car. A few moments later, a man I had never seen before walked toward her. He was tall, confident, and completely comfortable. Without hesitation, he greeted her with a smile. She smiled back in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Then he gently placed his hand on her, and she welcomed the touch without hesitation. In that single moment, 24 years of marriage felt like they had disappeared. I sat frozen behind the steering wheel, gripping it so tightly my hands hurt. Every part of me wanted to rush over, demand answers, and confront them both. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. I watched them walk into the restaurant together like two people who had shared this routine many times before. That night, something inside me broke, but something else came alive as well. I didn't cry. I didn't beg for explanations. I didn't start an argument. I made a decision. The very next morning, I contacted a divorce attorney, a sharp and experienced lawyer named Rebecca Collins. I told her everything I had seen, every concern I had ignored, and every suspicion that had been growing inside me. She listened carefully without showing surprise. When I finished, she simply nodded and said, "If you want to protect yourself, we need to move quickly." That's exactly what we did. Over the following days, we gathered evidence. Photos, phone records, bank statements, financial documents, piece by piece, every lie Laura had told started falling apart. It wasn't just one secret meeting. The relationship had been going on for months, maybe even longer. The woman I had trusted with my entire life had been living a completely different one behind my back. I filed for divorce, but there was another discovery waiting for me. Laura had always managed several of our shared financial accounts. Once my suspicions began, I quietly started reviewing every transaction. Large sums of money had disappeared without explanation. Rebecca traced the transfers and uncovered the truth. Our savings had been spent on him, vacations, expensive gifts, luxury hotels, dinners, and countless other expenses. When Laura was served with the divorce papers, the expression on her face is something I'll never forget. Shock quickly turned into fear, and beneath both emotions was guilt she could no longer hide. That evening she tried to speak with me. Tears filled her eyes as her voice shook. She insisted it had all been a terrible mistake and claimed it never truly meant anything. I looked at her calmly and replied, "I saw you. I know exactly what happened." The color drained from her face because she understood there was nothing left to deny. The divorce moved quickly, although it wasn't easy. The evidence spoke for itself. In court, every detail came to light: her affair, the misuse of our shared finances, and months of deception. By the time everything was over, she had lost far more than she expected. The house was sold, but the financial settlement strongly favored me after every hidden transaction was accounted for. The money she secretly spent was exposed, and her reputation suffered because the truth could no longer be hidden. But the greatest consequence wasn't financial at all, it was loneliness. Once the divorce was finalized and the legal process ended, she found herself completely alone. The man she had risked everything for disappeared as soon as life became difficult. When the excitement ended and reality arrived, he was nowhere to be found. As for me, I walked away with something far more valuable than revenge. I walked away with clarity. I had spent 24 years building a life beside someone who ultimately chose to throw it away. That decision belonged to her, not to me. I refused to let her betrayal define the rest of my life. Today, I wake up in a smaller, quieter home, but every corner of it brings me peace because it's built on honesty. It's truly mine. Whenever I remember that night in the parking lot, I no longer think of it as the moment I lost my wife. I see it as the night I finally found myself again.